is when you entered the military. What year was that?
December the 8th of 1941.
December the 8th. Is there any significance?
That was, yeah, December the 7th was,
Pearl Harbor.
that's right.
So my question is was that the reason you went in, or were you already planning on going in?
I was already planning to go in. I went to Barksdale Field and registered on the 8th.
I bet a lot of other young men did too. How old were you then?
Well, I born in 21.
I'm not good at math. I'm going to have to count on my fingers.
Well,
So
I was
you're
born.
probably 20 years old?
I was born in 1920, July, so I was 20 plus, you know. I got my pilot's license at Tulane University in 1940 and 41. I came back to Monroe and went to Northeast at night and got my advanced pilot license here in Monroe. Flew Wacos.
You flew what?
Waco,
What's that?
a twin engine.
Okay.
I mean a twin wing, not engine, single engine twin wings, like a, it was a real nice airplane. And I got my advance out there. They called me May of 42 to get in the Air Force. And it was the U.S. Army Air Force.
Was it the Air Corps or the Air Force?
U.S. Army Air Corps, our Air Force. It was Army.
And that was 1942.
Uh-huh.
And at what point in your training were you a B-24 pilot? Is that something that happened at that time, or?
Oh no, we went. We thought we were going to Maxwell Field, a bunch of us from Monroe and the area, but we went out to the West Coast, to Santa Ana, California, and we stayed out there. And from there, I went to flying school at King City, and that's where my wife and I got married in 1942.
And then you went back overseas, or
Not
what?
yet, no, I still, from there we went to Chico, California, flew another single engine airplane, and then we went to Stockton, California, flew AT-6s, but they wanted us to fly a twin engine, but the weather had been so bad and so forth that they couldn't do it. So that at Christmas time, they sent us to Yuma, Arizona, out in the desert, and we flew twin engines aircraft. And even Christmas night and Christmas Day and New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, we were flying. We lived in tents. And if we went to Christmas dinner, we had to wear a gas mask because the sand was blowing so. And then came home back to Stockton. Then we went to Hobbs, New Mexico, fly B-17s. And from Hobbs there, Jimmy Stewart, the movie star, came from Hobbs. So we all, when we got through with that, we went to Boise, Idaho, flew B-17s. And I flew with him on his instrument test he had.
Jimmy Stewart?
Yeah, and he and I would fly over to another place and get gasoline if we were low and spend the night and then come back to Boise.
Wow.
But from there we went to Pocatello, and at Pocatello they changed us over to B-24s.
Now the B-24 was a bomber,
Yeah,
and now at what point were you shipped overseas? When was that?
I went overseas in September
43.
of 40, yeah,
43.
43. Yeah.
Where did you end up over in Europe?
Well, I flew overseas and went to Reykjavik in Iceland, and from there to Prestwick, Scotland, and from there they took us to Wenderling, England. It was a little ways out of London. Actually, they took us to Stone first, England, and then they took us to Wenderling, where the 392nd Bomb Group was.
Can you tell me, I'm probably going to jump back and forth. But
Okay.
how many missions had you flown before you were shot down?
One.
So your first mission or your second?
Second mission.
So where were you based when you took off that day?
Windling, that's where the air base was.
Can you walk me through that mission?
Yeah.
And what you remember about it, and then being shot down, obviously. I
Right.
want to hear the story here.
Right. Well, being I was a replacement crew, they put me a low man in the last squadron. And believe it or not, that was a position you never came home. So my co-pilot, he slept a little bit later, and he finally came and asked me where we were going. I told him Bremen. I said, but we were a low man in the last squadron, so I doubt if we're going to be coming home. So we went around the North Sea. When we took off, it was so foggy and cloudy. We had all instruments going up to 19,000 feet, and finally broke out and got with the crew, the other members of our group, and went around the North Sea twice and went over the Bremen twice. And on the way in, the flak knocked one of my engines out, and come on the first time, and then I went around again. A fighter, German fighter, knocked my other engine out, and I had two. And I was doing pretty good. I was low and stayed with the group some, and got over the getting ready to go over the Frisian Islands, the Zuyder Sea, and lost all gas. So if you went into the North Sea, you could live 30 seconds. The information that I got from a young man from the government, we had 150-mile-an-hour headwind. We were at 24,000 feet, and B-24 used twice as much gas at 24,000 feet. So I didn't go into the North Sea. I was able to turn around and go over Holland, and everybody bailed out.
Everybody bailed out.
All of them got out, but
So can I ask you, when you're at that point, is there a lot of panicking going on, or is it just like, okay, guys,
nope.
out you go, or whatever?
When it stopped, that's time to leave.
Was it nighttime?
Daytime. And I was going to tell you something else there.
You stayed on the plane, though.
All of us jumped out.
Oh, you jumped out too, okay.
All of us jumped out. And everybody got home, believe it or not. So, but we lost 123 men that day. So we got picked up by, well, my co-pilot and I landed in a field, and the people in Holland came around us, but they couldn't help us because they didn't know who was a Quisling and would turn them in to the Germans. So the Germans came, and the Luftwaffe took us over and spent a night in a house underground, so to speak. And I stole a set of cards from them when I left. And we were going from there, we went to Amsterdam. But you wouldn't believe it. I told somebody that just a minute ago, we went on a wood-burning truck. In other words, halfway down, they stopped and put some wood in it and took us on to a jail, regular jail downtown.
I want to ask you now, okay, you all jumped out of the plane, and did you jump out last, or?
Well, yeah, well, we thought we did.
So you're parachuting down, and you weren't being shot at. And you hit the ground, and then what happened again after you hit the ground?
My
You were by yourself?
my co-pilot and I hit the ground. But I was going to tell you something else though, about we were flying with 500-pounders and incendiaries, and we dropped the 500-pounders first, and then the incendiaries. Set it on fire.
And then when you and your co-pilot were on the ground, were you injured when you landed or anything?
No.
And so, what are you thinking about when that happens? Are you going to be captured?
Yeah.
Were you captured right away?
Right away. They just, there were enough airplanes and people and parachutes that they knew what was going on. They thought it was an invasion.
Well, how did they treat you initially? Were they very mean to you? Or did they
No, at the beginning, no. Mm-mm. They very nice to us, and other than putting us in jail, and then they put us on a train going to Frankfurt. And when we got there that night, well, the British were bombing, so we went down in the ground in a bowling alley they had at the station way back. And then they took us to Dulag Luft, was an interrogation camp.
What was that like? I mean, what type of interrogation would they do?
Well, you lived by yourself. You were isolated. And they saw that my dog tag had Hebrew on it. So so-called Red Cross man came to see me. And all you could give him was your name and your serial number. That's it. And but he saw my dog tag, so he wrote Jewish on the door. And I got heat at night, during the day, and no heat at night. And you got fed underneath the door. That's it. You had potato soup, that's all. And if you need to go to the restroom, you better think about an hour or two ahead.
So you were living like this at this interrogation camp for how long were you there?
About 5 days.
Okay, and this is where they were feeding you like you're describing?
Yeah, and the interrogator told me that we had hit a hospital and killed a bunch of folks in the hospital. But I don't think we did.
So are you silenced? Are you talking to them? Are you giving them your name, rank, and serial
That's
number?
right.
That's it?
That's it. But they knew, my grandparents were from Ingenheim, Germany, and they knew that my grandparents had come from Ingenheim. I guess by somebody here reading a newspaper.
Interesting.
There were spies over here. A lot of them, the people there and then the people at Stalag Luft 1 all spoke English. And they had been over in this part of the country. I'll tell you a story about that and when we get a little further down the hill.
So what's going through your mind though? I mean, you're a prisoner of war, I guess, at this point, and are you fearful for your life, or do you have thoughts like, how long am I going to be here? What's going through your head?
Yes. How long was I going to be there? What they were going to do to me, see?
Were you afraid that they might kill you or anything?
Yeah. I'll get to that later. But from there, well, first, before we got to Frankfurt, we changed trains, and while we were doing it, the Hitler Youth were changing, and they saw us. We had our pink, light blue electric suits on, that's all. And they saw us, they were coming to beat us up, but our guards, we had 4 guards with 8 people, so they didn't let them come. They made get back in their train.
Can you tell me, I've heard about the Hitler Youth, can you tell me what they were, who they were?
Well, they
Were they all young people? Or?
Oh, all young people, yeah.
They were Nazis?
Yeah. Hitler took the kids away from their families and early and only taught them one thing, and that was to hate. But from there we went to Stalag Luft.